Okay, Sal, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. And I was reading your expose you had in the Gateway Pundit, and it mentioned the first thing that came off was about this mortgage fraud. And it says Letitia James, she is the Attorney General of New York State. So walk us through what you have and what you uncovered here, because this is truly unbelievable.
Okay, well, in the past week, I've actually had 3 articles on the Gateway Pundit, and they're calling it the Letitia Files because it's kind of karma has come around after Letitia investigated President Trump and charged him with crimes that were pretty much made up somehow, that the successful loans that he took out from banks over many years and paid back, and no one ever complained and no one was ever hurt, everyone was repaid, that somehow she felt he had undervalued his properties, which didn't make any sense at all from a real estate point of view. The banks actually are in charge of making their own appraisals, and they do not rely on valuations that are estimated by customers like Trump anyway. So now it turns out, when we take a closer look at Letitia James, which I did because I started out by looking at Sam Antar's website called whitecollarfraud.com. He'd done a tremendous amount of research and inspired me to look a little closer. And what's nice about New York State is just about everything is online. It's kind of an open record state, and you can use Acris and other websites of the city government and pretty much download anything you want. Now, it does take a lot of reading and a lot of research, and you have to know something about business and real estate to be able to identify things. So the first thing I identified is that Letitia James purchased in 2001 the 4-story multifamily apartment building at 296 Lafayette Avenue, and that is public record, in Brooklyn. Now, it's 5 apartments are in that building. She lives in one of the apartments, and she rents out the other 4. It's a 5-unit building, and very significant, which we'll talk about, the certificate of occupancy, which you have on the screen, at the City of New York Department of Buildings is the official legal designation of how many apartment units are in that building. It's in the certificate of occupancy. You cannot combine units or break up units and say you have a different number of units. It has to be legally designated, approved, and if you ever do a legal change to your apartment building in terms of the number of units, the city will come out and do a new certificate of occupancy. So the 2001 certificate of occupancy says that there's 5 apartments. Now, I noticed that Letitia, for 20 years, has been refinancing her original loan of $550,000 when she bought the building. And every time she refinances, she tells the lender that she only has 4 units in the building. Now, this might seem like a small, insignificant thing, but it's not, because when you have 4 units or less, you're designated as a residential loan and you have lower interest rates. If you have 5 apartments or more, it's going to be higher interest rates as a commercial loan. So right away, I saw that she's done a number of loans and always falsely claims that her building has 4 units. Now, the most significant of these loans happen to be, if you fast forward to 2011, because she did a refinance in 2005. She refinanced on an adjustable loan that started at 7.2% and had a ceiling of 10.2. So from 2005 to 2011, remember, the mortgage rates went up. So she was probably paying closer to 10% by 2011. Now, what does she do in 2011? She applies to the U.S. government for, they had TARP. You might remember TARP. It's called a HAMP loan. It's Making Home Affordable Program, HAMP loan, that she took out. She applied for a loan with the U.S. Department of Treasury under TARP program. Now, the TARP program was meant to help homeowners if you had 1 house or you had a total of maximum 4 units. It was only eligible to get a HAMP loan through the TARP program if you had 4 units or less. And the reason for that is they wanted to help small homeowners. They weren't trying to help businesses and multifamily apartment buildings. So sure enough, on her application, like she did for her other loans, Letitia applies for this HAMP loan from the federal government. And she claims she only has 4 units, even though the certificate of occupancy says it's 5. Now, the new interest rate would be 2.7%. So she wanted to reduce her interest rate from 10% to 2.7, saving like $40,000 a year on the back of the American taxpayer. So she applies for this loan by falsifying the loan documents, which are online, claims she only has 4 units in her building, even though she has 5. She also makes a hardship claim because in the regulations for the HAMP loan, you have to certify you have a financial hardship. Now, that's also very suspect for Letitia because she was making $126,000 a year in 2011. That's $10,000 a month. And she claimed in this hardship claim in the application that she couldn't afford to pay her loan and she had no way of paying it in the future. Now, as a single woman with no children, who's also getting rental income, that probably had another 20, 30, 50,000 a year from rental income on top of the 127,000. So it appears her hardship claim may also have been false. So she gets the 2.7% loan, and I looked it up, and it's under the jurisdiction of the Department of Treasury. Now, if someone were to take her other 5 refinance loans where she falsified the number of units to the state of New York Attorney General's office and said, hey, the Attorney General, her building looks like a crime scene. She keeps committing mortgage fraud crimes. Would you look into this? They probably wouldn't do it because Letitia James is the Attorney General right now. So the HAMP loan under the TARP program is the most interesting because the federal government, Department of Treasury, Department of Justice, they can look into it. And I believe there's solid evidence that I put out there on my Gateway Pundit article with all the links. Anybody can look up the links that she did commit mortgage fraud. And it is absolutely illegal to falsify your mortgage documents to get a benefit, to get a lower rate. Now, we know that Letitia James is a warrior for mortgage fraud. She clearly always says, you can't take advantage of the system. No one is above the law. So I believe she certainly should be investigated by the Department of Treasury. And if you look at these documents, even you're showing as we speak, I think it's an open and shut case that Letitia James committed mortgage fraud.
Now, that mortgage fraud would be, obviously, she still owns this property, correct?
Yeah, she still owns it. It's a 5-unit multifamily apartment building. She rents, I think, at least 1 unit now to one of her relatives. She has other people living there. She said in other documents that she makes as much as $50,000 a year in rentals. So she clearly did not qualify for the government HAMP loan, not number one, because it wasn't eligible if you had more than 4 units. And number two, I think she lied when she claimed a hardship that she couldn't afford her rent, her mortgage, because she was probably making $170,000 a year. So there's several reasons that she took advantage of the system to get the American taxpayer to subsidize her apartment building.
There's actually somebody stated in here, I don't know if it's true, but they did state, they said that she owns the property next door too. So that would be something just to know that, on her government salary, how she can afford all these things. This would lead into something because you're saying with this kind of mortgage fraud, that's where she's making her money and doing all her little side projects. Because $40,000, especially back then, if you go over the years, especially because things inflate, how much does she really have under the mattress here with everything? Because she's making an income, right, on the rentals, and she's taking out on the loans and saying, oh, hardship. This doesn't.
Well, I'll clarify for you. She made $126,000 a year from being on city council. That was her salary. Then she got as much as $50,000 in rentals. So probably around $175,000 a year was her income. And she claimed on her HAMP application, she swore in a sworn statement that which is illegal to do, to get a loan by making false income claims. She also falsified the number of units in her property. It's very much cut and dry. And I think she has to answer for it. I'd like to see the New York media and other media pick up on this because the hypocrisy is just breathtaking. How could she prosecute President Trump, a successful business that took legitimate loans, claiming that somehow he had inflated his or devalued his properties years ago, when there was no complainant and no injured party. Clearly, in Letitia's case for 296 Lafayette Avenue, the injured party is the American taxpayer, had to subsidize her mortgage so that she could make more money off of her rental income.
I see right here, this EC says, but she had owned it. It was her main residence before she got the building built from the bottom up. Because
that's not correct. No, she bought a building that was over 100 years old, and it had 5 units in it. She was domiciled in 1 unit, and she rented out the other 4 units. So that's all cut and dry fact. We had over 1,500 comments on the article in the Gateway Pundit. The comments were pretty much, "Ain't karma a bitch?"
You just watched the clip from the Sal Greco show. If you want to watch the full episode, click the link below. And while you're at it, please hit the like, share, subscribe button. And don't forget to click the notification button also.